And welcome back to KCAL News at 9. We're taking another live look at protests against ICE raids over downtown Los Angeles. And this is a shot, as you can see, where a number of protesters are still on the streets, waving flags, carrying signs, and a show of force behind them. As you mentioned, Ruta Bay, LAPD, and a number of municipalities. Ventura County, we saw in that line of at least 3 blocks, it looks like, of law enforcement there to provide support.
Yeah, they made some arrests. We had reporters on the ground talking about that. They made some arrests. They appeared to be peaceful as far as we could see there on the ground tonight. And it appears to be calm right now, at least in this area that we're seeing. And a far different picture from last night. This is now day 4 of these protests. And it does appear calm at this hour, at least from this vantage point.
Yeah, certainly not the chaotic scene that we had last night with 5 Waymo vehicles on fire, try to set a CHP vehicle on fire, and sporadic fires all over the place in downtown Los Angeles, spread out in different areas, which was, you know, very difficult. Okay, somebody just looked like a smoke bomb or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it was looking like to me. I didn't see it come from, I got to go back and look. I didn't see it come from law enforcement, so I don't know if somebody in the crowd had it and is throwing that around.
There have been fireworks, too. We've been seeing that.
Else.
Oh, it's a fire extinguisher.
Okay, well, you know what? Our Tom Wade is in downtown Los Angeles. We're going to go to him now, and Tom may be able to give us some information about what we're looking at here. Hi, Tom.
Hi there, Pat. Yeah, we just walked up on the scene right now. We're at 2nd and San Pedro. I think you were just looking at our aerial shots from here. Yeah, can you? Yeah. Also, we're on the ground here, and sorry, there's just a lot going on here. This is the highest concentration of people that we've seen, and it definitely has a more volatile feeling here in this area. And police do have the area locked down pretty closely here. But it certainly has tension. Sorry, I'm trying to stay away from people yelling profanity. Yeah, there's definitely this is definitely the highest concentration of people that we've seen since the crowd dispersed, was broken up from the area around City Hall. Now it sounds like there's almost like a street takeover kind of. It looks, I can't see it from my vantage point, but it sounds like someone may be doing burnouts just a few feet away. I can hear them making an announcement right now. Police, I believe, are ordering the crowd to disperse. So I'm trying to get a sense of where that's happening, which is, I believe, right down the street. You're looking at the vantage point there. This is Little Tokyo. Someone just flew a drone over the crowd, and that is going to really upset police because they do have their choppers up and they're pretty low. I can, that was a firework that just went off. I see projectiles being thrown. I can't really see directly into where the officers are, but you can see the fireworks going off, and people are standing on their cars waving flags. I see a number of Mexican flags being waved in as people are standing on top of their cars. You know, it's hard to know at this point who is here to protest in favor of immigration and immigrant rights and who is here just as an agitator. It's very difficult to discern that right now. It's very chaotic, very volatile. There's just so much, it's like a tinderbox, it feels like, you know, when there's just so many things going on. One person does one thing, the crowd can surge, the crowd can move. It's a very fluid and difficult situation to be certain. Now someone's firing off fireworks into the crowd. That is being fired from someone's pickup truck. I can see them, they're shooting it. They have like a launcher. They have a launcher. Do you see that, Anna?
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
This is so insane. Yeah,
Well, you know what, Tom? I'm just going to say this. Maybe they can't see that line of law enforcement, you know, that's behind LAPD there. There's almost a 3-block long.
Maybe, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if they're going to move in.
The thing is, oh my gosh. I mean, I don't see how they can let this go on much longer the way this is going. This is too tense. I mean, there's just too much right now that could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we just see you know, there could be officers that are lined up somewhere to rush in. Oftentimes, I mean, obviously you've got the chopper view, so I can't see everything around us, but oftentimes officers are in places we don't know where they are, and they just come blasting in a column and will just disperse the crowd, break it up very quickly. Certainly, this has to be an area of concern, because we've just been driving around. We have not really seen much else going on.
And Tom,
Sorry,
we're seeing these cars
me?
on the ground. Are these just random people who are trying to drive through downtown and maybe don't know what's going on? Are they protesters? Can you tell who's in these cars around you right now?
I mean, that's, you know, Rudabeh, that's really the question I have, because it's hard to get a sense of who is here you know, protesting, and who's here just kind of for a street takeover. It's just difficult to know. I mean, I think there are definitely people who are activists that are mixed in here, but sometimes you lose a sense of really. There's no organization that I can see. There's no sort of leader. There's no one. You know, Pat asked a great question earlier about sort of the George Floyd marches and protests and rallies that we saw, you know, back in 2020, and there were much clearer sort of organizations and leaders and people kind of guiding, and you know, obviously the outset of those were very violent, but the you know, first couple of days, but then things for the weeks that followed were very organized. They were very methodical. There were marches. That doesn't, in this case, it just doesn't seem like that. That doesn't mean it's not as legitimate or anything like that. It just means that it doesn't have that feel. It has more of a chaotic feel to it. You know, I'm looking over there in the distance there. The police do seem to have a pretty strong, you know, presence just ahead of us, up above San Pedro, but I can't tell, and obviously you guys can see from the chopper kind of better vantage point there of what they may be doing, or, you know, if additional personnel is headed this way.
Well, it's a massive show of force, and right now, we're seeing some officers get out of their vehicles. I hadn't seen this before until now. There is a line of LAPD that are right there at the front, and they haven't moved. It appears that they're trying to make sure that people don't get past them where they are. And when we bring Mike back in here, he can probably give us an exact location of where they are right now from the picture we're looking at here. So, Tom, they haven't moved, but again, they may be trying to keep them from going past them. But certainly, if they need to come out and get through the crowd, there's enough of them to do it.
Yeah, and Pat, you know, one man just walked up to us and said, "Is this a block party?" So that's, you know, sort of to the point that we were making before, which is that, you know, it's kind of hard to know who's here to protest and who's just kind of here. Yeah, I mean, we're just in that holding pattern right now where it just feels like something's going to happen, whether that means the police are going to move in, or whether, you know, we've seen some fireworks being shot off. We've seen people who are just kind of waiting to kind of see what happens next. So we're just trying to get a sense of, you know, where that goes.
All right, so you're at San Pedro and East 2nd Street. That's what we're looking at. That's where officers are. You know, what we were talking to Mike, he was describing what happened last night, where we saw quite a bit of vandalism at a number of businesses, at least 3 that were broken into, which is, you know, Tom, when we were talking about the differences in protests and the organization, you know, what we did see, unfortunately, in 2020 is a lot of people just taking the situation into their own hands, even spreading out. Remember going to Santa Monica, Melrose, and breaking into stores and using that as an opportunity to vandalize.
There was a lot of looting in 2020, and I remember in the days, you know, we'd have the really bad violence at night. The next morning, the business owners would gather. They'd be upset, understandably. So we had the 3, you know, yesterday, the 2 shoe stores and the T-Mobile store that all got looted pretty badly. Now, where Tom is at 2nd and San Pedro, that line of police officers, which is, by the way, I want to point out, mostly out-of-town law enforcement. It's mostly Ventura County sheriffs that are there, and some CHP officers. They are all lined up on 2nd Street going to the north. So they are occupying basically from 2nd Street through Los Angeles up until Main and almost Spring Street. There's about 3 blocks worth of law enforcement that are there. And they're, like I said, as you see somebody climbing a traffic signal here with the San Pedro marker on it to hang that flag. There's something that happened. There's something that just so very quickly switched with this group. I mean, we had been seeing, mostly calm, mostly peaceful, and then all of a sudden something happened and a couple of people, I don't know if it's a couple of people or most of the group, but somebody got in here and all of a sudden there were fireworks, there was smoke, there was things escalating very quickly compared to what it had been even, half an hour ago.
I will say, though, that law enforcement is holding the line. They did appear, those in the front appeared very calm. It looks like now they're moving in a little bit, and the crowd is dispersing. And they're taking projectiles from the crowd. They have their shields up, some of them, and taking some of that. Is there any idea why specifically they staged on this street, Mike?
I can't tell if it's just because tactically that was the smartest thing for them to do. There's nobody that can come into them from the sides. And I think, Tom's seeing that as well.
As you can see there, they are in formation. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was sorry. I thought Mike was asking me. The crowd just surged forward. Oh, you're fine. The crowd just surged forward, and obviously you guys probably have a better vantage point. I'm up a little bit higher now on a stair, kind of at this. It's a bank on the corner, and I kind of see a little bit better now. But I can see now it's going to get worse. They're firing things into the police line. Yeah, they were the fireworks. Yeah, I mean now this is just going to get ugly. The police are not going to allow that to continue. At this point, they might be starting to spread pepper bombs. I think, guys, I'm going to have to move. I don't know what's going to happen next year, and they may be beginning to spray pepper bombs or I don't want to get hit. So we're going to have to duck away.
Okay, go ahead, Tom. Yeah, we can see. No wonder they were moving closer in formation to what is happening. Does that give you some indication, Mike, that they're going to call an order pretty soon to move in?
Yeah, for sure. And let me look and see really quickly if they've done that already. LAPD's been really good about tweeting this, though I don't see LAPD down there. This is CHP primarily in the front there in the darker uniforms, and then you've got Ventura County Sheriff behind it. You see somebody moving in with fire extinguishers or in a cone. The CHP's throwing some of that smoke. We saw that last night. CHP's got both. We've seen them throw just smoke, and we've also seen them throw tear gas. There was a moment there while Tom was talking, I don't know if you guys saw it, but those CHP officers and the sheriff's deputies all reached down and put on their gas masks. So they are equipped with gas masks because we see this really large canister. I think that's smoke that they've thrown out there. This is what CHP kind of threw yesterday. There's a drone right there as well, which I'm sure is not from law enforcement. And so they'll have to deal with this. Obviously, it's difficult for them to see through the smoke, but this is why they came with 3 city blocks of cops to be able to facilitate what they need to do here. They've kind of stopped that smoke. I don't know if it was smoke or tear gas, but it definitely helped create distance between the officers and the deputies and the crowd there. And then, they'll have to, once they get out of this, little corridor here on 2nd Street, if they push further, the law enforcement's going to have to get wider to be able to cover, some of the ground as they come into the intersection. So they'll make some sort of tactical plan, I'm sure, and try to figure out how to do this and see what these guys are doing. You see the officers, I can't tell what they
picked up something.
Yeah, went over there and grabbed something. I can't really tell what it was, but they went over there and grabbed something and brought it back. And so, it's interesting because you've got the front group on that line. You see some people sitting, they've got their hands up, but then from the back of the crowd, you have that. You have people throwing fireworks. There's a bottle right there. So it's a really interesting picture when you see the people in the front trying to say, no, our hands are up, we're not doing anything. And then in the back of the crowd, they're throwing water bottles and fireworks.
Yeah, wow, look at that.
Okay.
Oh, throwing them directly.
Tom is on the ground. Tom, what are you seeing? This is getting pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was getting pretty crazy. We just moved back because at this point, there's no way that police are not going to respond to these fireworks and the other projectiles that are being thrown. So it's only a matter of time before this escalates even further. And that police will move in at some point. We're just concerned that if they did something sudden and the crowd, surged back toward us, we would get trampled. Obviously, it's been so chaotic here. And I'm sure you can probably see from the chopper shot that, there's just a lot of stuff being thrown, and as that escalates, it's just going to make this even more dangerous. It's just this simmering thing right now that will ultimately come to a boil. There's no question about it, and it's kind of, I don't even know if you can tell when you hear those booms. Like, that boom it's very loud. I mean, it is like an explosion, it sounds like. I mean, it's like a firecracker that's like going off in your ear. It's so loud. It's really surreal, honestly, looking at the way this is playing out. And I'm sure, that the police can't let this go on much longer, right?
Well, it's interesting. We noticed which we saw happen last night too, when they would throw the tear gas, the canisters, and officers would try to kick it back at them like a soccer play.
Say, bad game of soccer, yeah.
Yeah. So now it's pretty incredible. I ask you this question, Mike. We know these are primarily Ventura County police or police from other jurisdictions. So LAPD.
You can see the PDs.
They observing all of this, and maybe they'll make something. They surround, create a perimeter.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look.
They have enough of them.
CHP's got a fixed-wing aircraft above, so they at least have eyes on it that way. Certainly, if we're in a mutual aid situation, Ventura County Sheriff, CHP, absolutely could call an unlawful assembly. Now, they just don't, LAPD is kind enough to tweet it for us, so we can keep an eye on when that happens. But these officers certainly could be able to do that. Everybody you see in the black is CHP. That's primarily their special response team, mixed in with other officers as well. And then behind them, and it looks like those guys are a little bit further back now, but behind them, that's where we saw the Ventura County, right there, that second line, is the Ventura County Sheriff's deputies. So you've got that front line, and the reason that CHP is probably in front is because they appear to be a little bit more prepared for the situation. They're in a bit more tactical gear there, as you see. And then we'll have this situation here where now you've got this big gap between the protesters and the officers, and then eventually the protesters will start. See, that I think was CHP throwing something.
It looked like one of the protesters picked something up, had his or her hands in the air, and then was hit by something coming from the other direction just now.
Yeah, there should be an officer, I think, on the right side of the screen that's got a launcher that they were launching. This is what we saw them do last night, too. That is launching the tear gas canisters over into the crowd. And they have some good distance on those things, too. They were able to shoot them pretty far to get them into the crowd. And you saw it right there. So that guy, see him moving around with the black? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one of the tear gas launchers. Right here. And it was very effective on the crowd. And John, if you can go back over to the crowd, I want to see how far back they went. Because that's what we saw yesterday, too, on the freeway. It doesn't feel good. And so this will really weed out the people who are like, okay, it's time to go home, and the other people who are here to, cause problems. And as you see the crowd start to move, I believe that is down Alameda, John? I'm sorry, I keep saying Alameda, San Pedro. So they're now moving kind of in a southwesterly direction down South San Pedro.
There is no way, I'm asking a question, are they concerned about the exits? Do they have them blocked off, or do they feel they don't need to do that?
I think at this point, we're pretty far, and they're moving in the opposite direction of the freeway.
Okay.
So I don't think that we're in a situation, unless they were to circle back and go back to the north, we're moving away from the freeway pretty significantly away. So I think we're okay on the freeway right now.
And, they also have to think about the buildings above them. There are a lot of tall buildings, rooftops all around them that they also have to, keep an eye on from all directions. And they were really holding their line, exercising a lot of restraint. And then you saw from the crowd projectiles, fireworks. At one point, there were little fires started in that police line. And that's when they really started responding.
It really is. And, I was even having a conversation with our executive producer about the temperature of this crowd. And when we had talked, it was like, yes, the protesters are there, the cops are there, but things seemed to be okay. And then all of a sudden it wasn't.
Okay, let's go back to our Tom Wade. He's back online with us. Tom, are you still hearing loud bangs and... Yeah, you are.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's nonstop, right, Pat? It's going nonstop. And I can tell you, though, it looks like but now they're like firing into the walls, it looks like. I mean, I don't even know where they're aiming these things, but it looks like a lot of the people in the crowd have dropped back, and it looks like some were hit by tear gas because they're trying to clear their eyes. But yeah, they're still firing these fireworks into... one of them looked like it was shot into a building, but they do look like they're being fired at police. But as you probably have that better vantage point, whether or not I can't tell if they're coming from the police or from the CHP.
Yeah, those are from CHP.
But yeah,
Tom.
people are dropping back. Oh, they are? Okay, yeah. I mean, that's what I thought. Those the other ones, I could kind of tell when you were saying that it was coming from CHP. It's a different sound, and I could see there one of our other news stations. Their truck was trapped in the crowd. They're trying to get out. You know, obviously this is so volatile. Thankfully we were parked a little bit further away, and I'm sure they're just relieved to get out of there. But yeah, you can see now. Or I can even see now from this vantage point, it looks like they've really cleared out a lot of the people. There are still, you know, a scattered bunch of crowd, and I can tell they're about to surge again. They're moving back toward us, and then they kind of charge back toward the office. And I don't know if they're like making a barricade. It sounds like they knocked something over. Yeah, wait. Oh wow. Okay, they're all surging toward, and perhaps like a car, I think. Oh my gosh, this is nuts. Okay, well, so they're all. You might be able to see they're like behind a car right now. Now everyone's running. Oop! Now everyone's running. All right, everyone's running.
Oh, that's a trash can. Are there people pushing the trash can?
They gave it one good push and go right into the officers.
Oh, the one guy stopped it.
Yeah.
All right, so that was just being annoying, if you will.
Right.
Right. Thank goodness there was nothing in the dumpster.
And now you've got the crowd that has splintered. Some of them went down San Pedro. Some of them are down on 2nd Street, which is good because it makes the crowd smaller. But at the same time, it makes it kind of harder for law enforcement to figure out which way they want to go. So we'll probably see law enforcement stay at this intersection until they can figure out how they want to push, or if they'll split and push both ways. We'll have to see how they handle it. But they've had to kind of spread out now because of the distance and the wide area now that they're sitting in here at the intersection.
And thank goodness we don't see stores being vandalized.
Yeah.
And last night they were at, was it an AM PM or a gas station?
Yes, like a Chevron or something, I think.
Downtown?
Yeah, and that's when, and I think Laurie, that's where Laurie was. That's where the van thing happened. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they got there, all the lights of the gas station turned off, and that business was like, no, thank you, we don't want any of this. And then they kind of, stayed there for a while. They lit 2 trash cans on fire there. They didn't really do any damage to it, but they hung out there for a pretty decent amount of time.
Well, I'm sure law enforcement is stationed in various locations. We're seeing a majority of them now, as you mentioned, though, but they aren't LAPD. So obviously, pardon me, LAPD is at different locations that we're not necessarily focused on right now.
Right.
Which is helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's the design of mutual aid, is that last night what was happening is these guys would move, and so we had a pocket that was almost in, Chinatown, and then all of a sudden they popped up near LA Live, which geographically is the total opposite end of downtown, and it made it difficult for LAPD to hurry up and get over there.
Okay, they're doing something. They're moving in.
Yeah, they've got those pepper balls trained on the remainder of the crowd that went down San Pedro here. And there you see, so that is CHP. I know they look like fireworks sometimes, but that's CHP shooting more tear gas to keep the crowd moving.
Well, they seem to be moving.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it seems to be working, and let's see. They seem definitely more at the ready now, and an increased number as far as the line. They're 2 or 3 deep in some instances, and they have been taking a lot of projectiles, fireworks. At one point, there was a small fire started where they were now a dumpster that they had to fend off. So they are they've been on defense for a while now, and then they went on offense and dispersed the crowd.
I haven't heard about any more arrests. You wonder if they're still doing that, if they're still taking people into custody. I know that was a rather different location where they had those buses.
Yeah, I actually think, John, can you show that to us? John's in a spot, Sky Cal is who I'm referring to when I talk about John. Mm-hmm. He's in a spot where he can usually see both. So, John, I don't know if you can go back to Alameda and see if they're still facilitating those arrests over there. It's just, I think Sky Cal's almost like right on top of it. So he'll pan over, and we should be able to see where that location was. Yeah, it was right here. And it looks like they're just about done with that. I mean, they're probably still processing people. You still have the bus there. But I don't necessarily see any more protesters in this location.
But look how many vehicles are there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Maybe a couple.
It's a big law enforcement presence for sure. And you can see a lot of the officers moving in right now across that intersection. So there must be something going on, some sort of information they have. They're forming a line at one of the crosswalks and then moving
Really?
across the
To
street.
this corner and that
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah.
And they've got this one lined up as well.
And this is all LAPD right here.
Yeah.
So clearly they coordinated this with multiple agencies, and this is a coordinated approach now. I'm sure they knew to expect something like this given the events of the past few days.
Right. Yeah, and this situation looks like, pretty wrapped up at this point. I mean, there was those people that we saw with Laurie that were being taken into custody. By the way, a CNN reporter was detained at that location as well. And detained, put in handcuffs briefly, and then escorted out of the area. It doesn't sound like they ever processed him or took him, but I was just looking at we're a CNN affiliate technically, so I was looking at some of the video they were putting up on the server of that interaction happening. CNN crew it says they were removed by police from a protest zone in downtown, but this reporter was, had his hands behind his back, and the security guard that they were with, and they were escorted out with their hands behind their back. From that location.
I wonder if that's because they didn't disperse when they asked them to.
Yeah, we're not exempt from that. We work with our local law enforcement about where we're supposed to be, where it's safe for us. Certainly, we have a constitutional right to do what we're doing, but to an extent. And we go to trainings with law enforcement to be able to know where we're okay to be in certain situations.
And if they say move, you move.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to Tom Waite. Tom, have you changed your position?
I just moved back a little to avoid being pepper bombed or pepper sprayed. But I'm like right in that same intersection that we've been talking about. I mean, we're just, just a little back from it at 2nd and San Pedro. So the crowd is dispersed, as I'm sure you can probably see a bit, but there's still a lot of people that are still here. It's just more scattered, and we're still hearing these huge booms, and I don't know where those are coming from, if those are from the CHP or the officers or from the people here in the street. But yeah, there's people lingering. There's a number of people kind of watching on the side. That has to be from the CHP. Those two boom sounds. Yeah, I don't. What is that, Mike? Is that a flash bomb or is that?
It's a mix of tear. Sometimes they're using tear gas. Most of the time they're using tear gas, but they're shooting it out of a launcher. So it shoots and then it delay kind of, I don't want to say explodes, but ignites, and so it looks like a firework. We see it flash like a firework, but it's actually a canister of tear gas.
I wonder where they're shooting it because we're directly in front of them and I don't see them landing. I did see one. Oh wait, I think I see where one of them hit, but we're like directly in front of them. I mean, obviously down the street. So I'm wondering which direction are they firing it toward, like to San Pedro?
Yeah, they're standing in the intersection and they're shooting it towards San Pedro. So there's a couple of officers right there on the corner of the intersection and then shooting it down San Pedro.
Okay. Yeah, and it looks like some of the folks that are here still are kind of moving back toward the intersection now. It definitely feels like, that like they're not ready to give up this confrontation. But, I would say officers and CHP will have them outnumbered pretty shortly if they don't already.
Well, we're looking at a number of people in your shot where they just look like they're looky-loos or they're there just to see what they can see. Some of them are holding flags. Others we can see running. And a lot of people they're live streaming. They're using this as a social media event. You can tell.
Yeah, exactly, Pat. Yeah, that's so true. Now everyone's running again, so that must mean they fired some sort of pepper spray or some sort of pepper bomb this direction because everybody's surging back. And you could hear the rapid fire boom, boom, boom. They are being more aggressive, meaning the CHP or the officers, and it's in succession. And it's there's a woman I can hear just to my left. She's offering people eye washing if they've been affected by the pepper spray. I actually can't feel any of it yet or taste it. What I can smell and sort of taste is the smell of paint because people are tagging the buildings and the smell is so strong. At first I thought it was pepper spray, and I just saw the guy next to me, he's moved. He had a huge can of red spray paint in his back pocket, and I don't know if it was him or someone else who has red spray paint, but the building to my right, this federal something building, has got a bunch of red tagged spray paint stuff all over the walls. So There you go. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm seeing more officers now, and I'm seeing fewer in the crowd. You can tell that these tactics are having the desired effect for LAPD officers. There's much fewer people here, and I think that the just sort of shock and awe of the boom, boom, and then of course of the tear gas. It's enough to. I mean, that stuff is very effective. There are people here that have gas masks on, though. There's a lot of people, and sort of face masks as well. But I think there are people here with goggles and all kinds of things to try to stop the spray paint from. Or not spray paint, from the pepper spray from affecting them.
And Tom, are you on 2nd Street, or you're on 2nd Street, right?
Yeah, I'm on 2nd Street. I'm looking at the San Pedro sign. Yeah, I'm looking at from my vantage point, so I can see the San Pedro Street sign like from the traffic light from where I'm standing, and we're like a half block back. We were right on top of it, for a bit, but then it was just getting too tense and too volatile. Like our photographer here, Anna, who's doing an amazing job, was like, this is the moment, and she was absolutely right, because after that, I think the CHP really started engaging and deploying their less than lethal tactics.
Well, it's I don't think you can see from our vantage point, Tom, but where those officers have apparently, CHP, a lot of them have moved from that front line position further into the crowd, and we've seen the crowd periodically move up these dumpsters, and it almost looked like they were trying to form a line full of dumpsters, as if that would stop law enforcement from coming through. And now we see a vehicle going pretty fast here. Looks like they're going to try to be closer. Now they're going to turn around.
And Pat, I think the officers are pushing forward too. Mm-hmm. They may be doing that move where they rush forward. Oh,
yeah,
and there's
vehicle was this car was going to try to go through, but no, they turned around and they're coming back the opposite direction.
Which really is the best situation.
Okay, so so I don't know. The crowd's responding again. They're kind of pushing back, but I can't really see. Oh, I see. Oh, look, you can see. Yeah, the officers have now formed a line, and they're moving further and further down 2nd Street, and they are pushing the crowd back to the point where. They've almost cleared the entire crowd. Now that a little scary there for a second. I thought there was a Toyota Corolla that accelerated very quickly toward the officers, and it was unclear what it was going to do, but the driver turned around now. So that's good. Everything just seems volatile right now, right? After several days of this, you just don't know. Yeah, no, this is all right.
and Tom, I want to just point out to our viewers really quickly, if we can, put the inset back with Tom in the helicopter, because where Tom is on 2nd Street, where SkyCal is San Pedro Street. Now you have the officers at the intersection there. They have split into 2 lines. So you have a line of officers that are walking down 2nd Street to where Tom is, and then you have a second line of officers that is walking down San Pedro Street. So earlier when we talked about how on 2nd Street there were 3 blocks of law enforcement officers that were moving through the area, that's why, so that they could split, and half of them could go down 2nd Street, and half of them could go down San Pedro Street. As we begin shortly here, KCAL News at 10, Juan Fernandez, Susie Sa here with us at the anchor desk. This is certainly the most activity we have seen in quite some time tonight, guys.
We thought it was a quieter evening when we came to you last. First of all, during the 7 o'clock hours when we saw the protests really thin out, and the crowds were really thinning out, and there were no dispersal orders officially at the time, but police did have some big vans or a big bus ready to detain people if need be, but we actually didn't see that happen.
Mm-hmm. By the time that we handed over the newscast to Ruta Bay and Pat, things seemed calm. I walked away feeling like, okay, perhaps the worst of the night is over, but of course, as the evening progressed, we did see things get a little more tense. But there from SkyCal, Mike, you're looking at a pretty clear street. So I'm guessing it's just smaller groups of protesters that are hanging back.
Yeah, well, and thankfully what happened is, and this is what happens every time law enforcement pushes forward, they've splintered. So you had a group go down second, you had a group go down San Pedro, which made the group a lot smaller, which of course is good news because every time the group splits, that's what we want, is for it to get smaller. So Tom is there on 2nd Street. The chopper is looking at San Pedro Street. And on San Pedro Street, anyway, there seems to be a few more people, but they're very, very spread out. And there's even, I think even less people on 2nd Street where Tom is.
All right, for those of us just joining us right now, this is KCAL News at 10 o'clock, another night of protests against immigration raids here in Southern California.
Well, within the last few minutes, things have escalated dramatically with protesters firing fireworks at police.
And police are out in force in downtown LA. We counted more than 50 police cars, look at this, from departments across Southern California, all lined up and blocking streets.
Well, on night 4 of the protest, police are doing mass arrests. Our KCAL News crew there as officers are cuffing people who ignored an order to leave.
And the protests also spreading south to Santa Ana. Tensions between police and protesters boiling over, with law enforcement going into the crowd to go after this guy in the yellow hoodie.
Also tonight, Marines are reportedly rolling toward downtown LA after the defense secretary mobilized hundreds of them. Another 2,000 National Guard troops have also been federalized and called up. But what are they all going to do once they get here?
All right, let's go back to our Tom Waite, also in downtown Los Angeles for us tonight, giving us an idea of how things are on the ground for us right now. Tom?
And you know what, Juan, right now it just feels a bit tense in the sense that I think there's a lot of anger here out on the street. There's a lot of people who are very, they're frustrated. They feel like some of the tactics out here have been heavy-handed. Again, I'm not saying whether they all have or have not been. I'm just saying I think that there's definitely a sense of, the volatility, the sort of like any moment, tempers could explode. It just feels like that kind of that level of kind of uncertainty, and I think it's been now days and days of people of anger and rage, and what we just saw just play out a few minutes ago was it appeared protesters or people here in the crowd firing fireworks into the line where CHP and LAPD officers were standing, over and over and over again, and CHP then responding by using their less than lethal devices, which included anything from I think it was some sort of pepper spray or pepper bomb. They were firing these canisters, doing whatever they could to kind of get the crowd to disperse, and to a certain extent it is. And I mean, look at the contrast here. We have a food truck right here, just beyond where you have a massive police column of kind of where we have all the way down at the end of the block here. So it just gives you a sense of the two different things going on in LA tonight. You have this corner of the city where basically I think the reason why people ended up in this area is because they were flushed out of the main part of where they were protesting earlier, which was right by the detention center and right by City Hall. Now, of course, police kind of blocked off a lot of those areas starting earlier, and I think that the idea was to not let this go and escalate the way it has in other evenings, just the past few days. So, but I think what happened was the impact was that people moved to this area, but even though it's much further away from where they were, it still was an area with like a sort of tinderbox kind of feel to it, where I think police realized they had to move in, and they did. And there was, obviously some moments where it was pretty tense, where they were firing the fireworks and then the other countermeasures. And so now you have got a number of choppers from police and other agencies. They are in the air, and they are really sort of locking down the intersection. They have already dispersed this crowd. There's still people here standing around and kind of watching what's going on, but not engaging the police like they were. They are very much sort of like hanging back and kind of watching now. And we'll see if more people end up leaving, but right now things have calmed down quite a bit.
And Tom, it just goes to show you how quickly things change, right? One moment things are very agitated, the next suddenly, as we're looking here, as you said, the crowd is thinned out. Maybe you have some stragglers there, but it's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, Tom, any idea what may have incited that escalation earlier, though? I mean, you've been there all night for hours, and then suddenly this escalation.
Yeah. Susie, I think it's just the continuing crescendo of emotions and anger there are activists in the crowd, but also there are agitators. I saw a couple guys with spray paint in their back pockets tagging buildings. And obviously has nothing to do with what's going on, the issue at hand, right? So there are people taking advantage of this. There are people who come here just to cause problems and incite. Whereas, and that, when you have a crowd of people who are already kind of on the edge, can then create an explosive environment. Now we see a lot more police officers, and they're probably going to rush down the street. And let's move back. They're probably going to charge down here, so we're going to move back a little bit. But they're forming a line. But Susie, I think just basically what's happening is it's just a culmination and a gradual building. A simmer that comes to a boil of anger about the ICE issues, and then obviously a lot of these protesters were forced back by police to this area. They were forced away from where they were. So I think there's just, it's just one of those things where the emotions boil over, and you get a bunch of people who are fired up into one tight space and angry and frustrated, and so then you see the volatility kind of unravel from there.
All right, our Tom Waite live there in downtown LA. Thank you so much, Tom.
All right, let's get to our...
KCAL's Laurie Perez also live in downtown LA for us tonight, just like Tom Waite was. Laurie.
Yeah, we're actually not that far from where Tom is, but boy, what a difference it is where we are. This is an intersection that not so long ago was filled with protesters facing off with police. Then about an hour ago, police started to cuff people after repeated announcements asking them to go home, telling them to leave this area. They started to cuff people. I know we have some video of them taking people into custody and then loading them up on these big white LAPD buses that we see that they use when they start to make mass arrests. And so we saw that about an hour ago. They took away two full buses, maybe about 40 people who had been standing off with police for hours on different intersections throughout downtown Los Angeles. In the time since they started putting the cuffs on, now this intersection is pretty clear, but for about 3 or 4 protesters on one side and then 2 protesters on the other side. In fact, we were just remarking it's pretty surprising at the number of LAPD officers who remain lined up on this intersection facing off with just a handful of protesters. Of course, we don't know their strategy. We don't know if they're posted up here in case that situation where Tom is starts to get mobile and move in this direction. But, still quite a force of LAPD officers situated here again in the Arts District. They've been here for hours now. Everybody kind of waiting and watching to see how the rest of this night plays out. But for now, it is calm on this corner in downtown Los Angeles. Again, such a stark contrast to where Tom Waite is, which is not so far from where we are at all. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, no doubt. And Laurie, regarding those people that were being arrested, it looks like they are being taken in. It's not like a cite and release and off they go. They are being taken in and to get booked.
Yes, that's right. We saw them loaded up on the buses. Again, 2 full buses, probably about 40 people. Yeah, they were loaded up and they were taken away from here. So they have a long night ahead.
Yeah, clear message that they're not playing around with these protests. If they catch you vandalizing or breaking the law, they're going to take you in.
Absolutely. Well, as we watch these crowds thin out in downtown LA, we want to show you these pictures of protesters still in the streets of downtown LA tonight, still making their presence known, and the LAPD still doing so as well. Mike was telling us earlier that many more officers are actually possibly on shift tonight if they were needed, as a citywide tactical alert was issued earlier tonight, right, Mike?
Yeah, citywide tactical alert was issued tonight. It was in effect last night, the nights before that. As we watch this group, there's bars over those windows, but you've got the, So now we're starting to swipe it with
See that, Mike?
Yeah. Hopefully they don't, it didn't look like a real hard effort. So hopefully it doesn't actually get into anything there, because the last thing we want is to start seeing businesses being looted like we did see the last night. This is the crowd as the chopper kind of moves around. We can show you some video here. This is the crowd that really got active with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, the California Highway Patrol. We watched as they started to put on gas masks here as Fireworks were being thrown at those officers. CHP responding very quickly after kind of being overwhelmed for a brief moment with those fireworks. But really, as soon as CHP started to do their thing, that crowd moved fast. And by do their thing, I mean lots of flashbangs, tear gas, all of those things that were put at those protesters that caused them to splinter off into two different groups, one down San Pedro and one down 2nd Street. Now, I also want to show you some more video because we also saw a drone flying through this area. Now, it's more than likely just for recording purposes and for video. And, you know, right there in the middle of the picture in the cloud below the traffic signal, you see it now flying to the left of the screen. What's unfortunate, though, Chief Jim McDonald said yesterday that they even encountered, or today rather, he said today that yesterday they encountered people with two-way radios that were communicating with each other and being able to coordinate. So hopefully that drone was not a part of any of that effort and just a terrible social media kind of stunt that some people are trying to do. Now, I want to show you more here because we saw this last night. We're seeing a little bit tonight where these protesters are trying to do makeshift barricades, essentially. We watched as this dumpster was given one good push and pushed into the line of the CHP officers. Thankfully, it didn't have that much momentum, and CHP was able to just get it to kind of stop where it was right there without it doing any more harm. We'll take you back out live now to the helicopter that is kind of monitoring the situation. You see that very large contingent of Ventura County Sheriff's Office, CHP, all of those different agencies that are now here trying to deal with this, guys.
And Mike, they're going to stay here as long as needed, right?
As long as needed. Mutual aid is in effect until it's not. You know, the sheriff is in control of that here in LA County, and he has said that we will do this as long as we need to. And we've got the support, they say, of our partner agencies from the CHP, Ventura County Sheriff, all of the San Gabriel Valley cities have been there. We've seen a lot going on, guys.
So even if the street's clear of protesters, law enforcement's still going to stay out there, right?
Yeah.
And just in case as day breaks for Tuesday here.
Exactly.
Downtown LA.
Yep.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. Let's get